Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to give you guys some final impressions of the Motorola Bionic Lapdock. Now in the past I gave you some initial thoughts on this device, a quick look, as well as the Lapdock 100, its newer, less expensive sibling, which is compatible with all Motorola web-top enabled phones, unlike this device, which will only work with the Motorola Bionic. Much like the Atrix on AT&T and its Lapdock, difference being that the port where the phone docks here has a reversed orientation so that you can't use the Atrix with this Lapdock even though it's identical, and vice versa. You cannot use the Bionic with the Atrix Lapdock unless you modify them respectively. So let's talk about what you're getting here for $250, which of course is a lower price point than the original $300 that it launched, at least with Verizon. Not only are you getting two USB ports, the 11.6-inch display, a chiclet-style keyboard, but of course, you're getting the ability to use your LTE connection wherever you are without a tethering charge. Now, do keep in mind that if you are on a tiered data plan, you will start to rake up quite a bit of data quickly on a device like this. If you're unlimited like myself, then this is pretty much, a match made in heaven for your respective Motorola phone. In this case, of course, only the Bionic, since it's proprietary, but when I speak in those terms, I'm also thinking, of course, of the Lapdock 100. But let me go ahead and show you guys some of that flash playback that you're probably curious to see. This is a 720p clip, of course, the initial impressions of the device you're looking at right now that I filmed a ways back.
This device weighs in at 2.2 pounds, I believe. You're looking at its chiclet-style keyboard, a little bit cramped because of the size of this touchpad. You can disable the touchpad just with a simple double tap of the upper left corner there. You do have a right and left click, really stiff I've noticed, and over...
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. You guys got a pretty good impression of the audio and video performance there. Speaker quality is not that impressive. The Lapdock 100 does have better audio output than these speakers, but it's a marginal difference. So, you won't get too excited about the audio performance from either Lapdock, but the 100 does edge out the Bionic Lapdock slightly. On that note, I was covering the keyboard there. I want to mention that the keyboard is fairly nice on this device, but I have had a lot of problems with that space bar. For some reason, on multiple Lapdocks that I tested, again, this Bionic Lapdock and the AT&T Atrix Lapdock, the space bar seems to be generally off or defective to a degree. I have been unable so far to find one of these Lapdocks where, without hitting the exact center of the spacebar key, you could actually get it to space, which is clearly a pretty big problem. I have, heard from users that haven't had the problem, but in the couple that I've seen, from the one that you guys see here, as well as just going into a Verizon store, the space bars all seem to be a little wonky. So that's something to know in advance. But as you can see from the video performance, you just saw, output from my Bionic. That was 720p video on an 11.6-inch display, and it was playing back pretty much flawlessly. If you allow it to buffer and load up, you're going to get good flash performance playback on this Lapdock from the Bionic. It's important to note, again, the Bionic is the brains behind this show. You've got that dual-core 1 gigahertz processor as well as a gig of RAM. So as phones get more powerful, clearly the Lapdock experience is going to change. But this is already a pretty good start. This is a great match for Hulu, Netflix, any video service online that you could think of. You're going to be really happy with this. Again, battery performance also very good. Rated at 8 hours, somewhere between 6 and 8 in my use, depending on the charge of your phone, because it does charge the phone while it's docked, of course. The Lapdock 100, on the other hand, again, it's less expensive, newer sibling, much less battery life. You're looking at a rated 5 hours there, which in my use has been more like 3 to 5. Again, depending on how much charge there is on your actual handset. I want to show you guys a little more web browsing. The touchpad, by the way, even though it's much larger than what's found on the other Lapdock, the 100, it's far less usable. I want you guys to know in advance, more real estate, but the sensitivity, no matter what I do with trying to make the sensitivity higher, tweak it, I continuously get poor performance when compared to the 100. It's not to say that the Lapdock 100's touchpad is in any way perfect, because it's far from it, but it is much easier to use than the touchpad here. But you saw CNN loaded up fairly quickly here in the full Firefox browser that's part of the web top experience. As you can see, it's a little bit slow, and that's part of what you're going to get out of the entire web top experience, unfortunately. It does have its sluggish moments, no question about that, but it does deliver on, giving you a full desktop web browser on the go, no question there. I would say that if you open up more than 3 tabs in this browser right now, at the current state of the web top build of the software, of course, you may run into the low memory, the notorious low memory notification, which basically pops up right here and tells you you have to close out different apps or programs in order to free up, RAM for the operation of the laptop, essentially. But I don't run into it that much. Maybe it's because I'm not, overworking the laptop. That's probably one possible reason that I don't hit it that often. But again, priced down to $249, certainly for light web browsing, email. I really do appreciate what the Lapdock represents. Whether or not you want the 100 versus this is really going to come down to many of the things that I've mentioned so far. If you prefer the larger screen, you're going to go with this one, obviously, but keep in mind, usability on this device is not as good, in my opinion, as the Lapdock 100, both because of the keyboard as well as the touchpad. Those are the two critical things, in my opinion. After all, if you're using a Lapdock, you have to be comfortable with the keyboard and touchpad. And for some reason, the refinements of the Lapdock 100 are that important that I wholeheartedly couldn't tell you to go with this device unless you really value the battery life, build quality, and screen size over usability of the touchpad and actual keyboard. Now, I don't see that as being really a competition in any way, but for some of you out there, I imagine it will be. So let's stop looking at a static image of CNN here. And beyond, obviously, being able to use that Firefox web browser and a host of customizable shortcuts there at the bottom of the screen, you can of course bring up your phone on mobile view, which is you can also put that to full screen, which is clearly nice. It's just a great thing. I can't stress it enough to have access through Verizon's LTE network, not only to the internet, but to all of your text messaging. Of course, with the internet comes all of your email, all in one place. So really, for a lot of you out there, the Lapdock does represent the end of carrying around multiple devices. It's the best of the tablet world and phone world kind of meshed in together with, a laptop experience. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite have, the reach of, let's say, a Chromebook, but it's close. And, that's why a lot of people are drawn to this device. It's the idea of having one device do everything. Now, unfortunately, like many devices that try to do it all, it doesn't do everything perfectly. But for what it does accomplish, again, browsing the web, charging your phone simultaneously, of course, permitting you to have access to your email, pretty much anything you'd be doing from a computer, provided that you had access to the internet, which with this device, you're going to have it all the time. Again, do keep in mind that if you're tiered, you're going to rack up those data charges. But if you are not tiered and you're grandfathered unlimited, or even if you're taking advantage of Verizon's current plan, where they're doubling the data for the $30 a month up to 4 gigs, you're going to really enjoy using this without having a tethering fee like the unfortunate AT&T users out there who not only paid a much higher premium for this device, even though they did get it far earlier than Verizon, but to boot had to pay a monthly, package, essentially, a monthly data plan, add that to their account in order to use the Lapdock, which is pretty sad. But let me go ahead and pan down away from the screen back to the keyboard, because that's what I really want to focus on now with you guys. Because again, what I mentioned earlier is that the keyboard on the Lapdock 100 is just far superior. So I want to show you guys why. You do have the chiclet layout here, which is a nice thing. I do prefer it, at least aesthetically. In terms of the size they squeezed it in here, simply too small. It ends up feeling cramped. As I mentioned before, the space bar is one of the biggest problems on this keyboard. You're just, in use, if you go ahead and try it out at a Verizon store or even purchase one, you'll see what I'm talking about, unless, of course, you do get one of those magical, perfect models that, works flawlessly, then I look forward to hearing about it from you guys. But critical things that just aren't there that are present on the Lapdock 100 are the Android shortcuts. Yeah, we have function keys here. We have, you know, function keys for volume over there and brightness control, as well as, you know, page up and page down. But unfortunately, none of the basic Android buttons such as, you know, menu, home, search, back that you'd expect to find on a Lapdock that is built around an Android-based device. It just doesn't make sense. So that's one of those simple refinements that the Lapdock 100 brings to the table that for some reason they just completely missed on this device. Now, if the Lapdock 100 wasn't out, I'd still have that criticism because it just simply should be there. This is a lesson that Motorola could have easily learned from any other company in the industry, whether it's Asus with the Transformer or, you know, take your pick. There are quite a few different, you know, such as keyboards, such as the Logitech, even the Logitech Review, the mini controller. You know, it has Android buttons on it. The Google TV devices all had Android buttons. So I'm not sure what Motorola was thinking. It's almost as if this was a great concept in the boardroom, and then whoever came up with the idea walked away from it as soon as they started to actually design and produce the device. Now, the overall build quality is fantastic. It just completely destroys the Lapdock 100, no question about it. And it should, because after all, this was a much more expensive device, and you feel it in the build quality. You know, you are getting the bigger screen, you are getting the better battery life, but this touchpad just about kills the experience, and that's why we're focused on it right now. While it's much larger than the touchpad of the Lapdock 100, which is literally about this large in comparison of just the sheer size, the sensitivity I just cannot get right. No matter what I do, I know I mentioned it earlier, I cannot seem to find a sweet spot with it. And some of you out there may think that I'm, you know, being a little dramatic, but I think that if you go out there and you try it yourself, you're going to see that the touchpad, when compared with the 100, let alone who knows how the 500 will perform when that model eventually hits the market, it just is far superior on the newer web top enabled lapdocs. This you know, first gen experience, you know, really, it embodies what first gen experiences are all about, you know, growth and growing pains. And the new series of lapdocs, the touchpad experience is far superior. You've got two-finger scrolling, even though it's not true multi-touch, it's still two-finger scrolling, which I think is far more natural. You've got no scrolling here whatsoever, so that's definitely extraordinarily cumbersome. The button here to turn off the touchpad with a double tap is a good novelty, but that's about all it is. On the new Lapdock, you know, also you're able to turn off the touchpad, so not really a big deal. And again, the keyboard, it's usable. Don't get me wrong. It's not that far behind what you'll find on the Lapdock 100. In fact, some of you will find the 100 to be more cramped just because it's a flush, normal keyboard as opposed to island style like this. But I just find the overall, you know, practicality for productivity, you know, in terms of potential of how you're going to use the device and how frustrating it's going to be, the Lapdock 100 beats this device hands down. And, you know, the web top experience is sluggish enough that we really don't need it to be competing with itself by having a poor touchpad or keyboard to boot. After all, the Lapdock is really only accomplishing three different things, which is, you know, a keyboard and touchpad input, as well as giving you a screen output for your device, and then of course an internalized battery. And that's, you know, the last thing I want to focus on is the actual battery. So up at the front of the device, as I close it right now, you'll see, of course, you have that battery indicator that you can go ahead and hit, and it'll light up and tell you. So right now we've got 4 out of the 5 LEDs are lit, so that's pretty decent. Now on the Lapdock 100, if you're using the Bionic, unfortunately it's not compatible yet to the degree where it'll actually show you where you're at with the battery life of the Lapdock itself. However, the LED indicator on the 100 will blink red, of course, when the battery's going down. So that's another issue. You know, if you are looking for the completely compatible, quote-unquote, Lapdock for the Bionic, this, of course, is still going to be the correct one to choose, because after all, this Lapdock really, in every way, is completely compatible with the Bionic. You know, as soon as you plug it in and open it up, you're going to get your web top experience. As you can see, it already came up. And above and beyond already, immediately getting your web top experience, even though it just disappeared after coming up, which occasionally this has happened. See if it syncs up here. The bottom line really is that you have to pick and choose your battles here. And if I had to recommend right now going with one of these lapdocks, as you can see right now, it's not working, so I'm going to go ahead and close it up. But if I had to tell you guys to pick one of these right now, I have to say that the better bet is to go with the Lapdock 100. Again, if you want the higher quality build and you want the larger screen, you're looking at it here in the Bionic Lapdock. But if you're looking at what's going to be a real practical, useful device, I have to give it to the Lapdock 100. Not only because it's compatible with a whole host of Motorola phones as opposed to a single phone, but it also just has far more polish, not aesthetically. This again reigns supreme on that, no question. This is a far more polished looking device, but in terms of functionality, the Lapdock 100 is a much better lapdog to go with. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really need to tell you guys. I mean, again, not having that two-finger scroll is just huge for me on, a netbook experience like this. And even though they've lowered the price on this device right now, I still can't tell you guys that you should go out and pick it up. Just the shortcut keys, things that I've mentioned to you guys. Again, you don't want the device getting in the way of itself. And as I mentioned before, the web top experience is sluggish to begin with, but still very usable. If you're like me, need to update, my YouTube account, want to put up a new video, then having access through those two USB ports to go ahead and upload a video for you guys over the LTE network is just really a great benefit at no additional cost. And that's where having a lapdog, at least for me personally, is a no-brainer, to say the least. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think we've pretty much covered everything. The bottom line is that, as I've said over and over again, you guys should go with the 100, even though this is on sale, unless this becomes a fire sale item, much like AT&T recently was clearancing out the Atrix lapdogs, and I know people were buying them to mod them for the Bionic, etc. That's a different story. If all of a sudden Verizon starts to sell this at $100, then I really can't tell you guys to go pick up the Lapdock 100 at even a $200 price point, because again, I do really feel like 100 is the price point that this device should be at retail. Of course, if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.